On the morning of January 22, 2007, deputies from the Thurston County Sheriff's Office respond to a remote gravel pit off Little Rock Road Southwest, north of Rochester, Washington. The area is rural, quiet, open, the kind of place where the sound of tires on gravel carries far. They arrive to find the body of a woman. Bruises and cuts mark her skin. Her body has been left in plain sight at the entrance to the pit, with no effort to cover or conceal her. She is 37 years old. Her name is Karen Bodine. She is a mother of 3 daughters. 19 years have passed since that January morning. 19 years since Karen's daughters lost their mother. 19 years since the person or persons responsible walked away. No arrest has been made. No one has been charged. Yet the case has never been closed. Karen Bodine was more than the circumstances of her death. She was a woman who loved her children deeply. She left secret notes in their school notebooks, small messages of encouragement, reminders that she was thinking of them even when life felt heavy. She had short, spiky blonde hair with a touch of pink tint, a creative touch that reflected her spirit. She was feisty, resilient, someone who fought through difficult seasons that included periods of substance use and domestic violence. Those struggles were real, but they did not define her. Her daughters remember her laughter, her warmth, the way she showed up for them in her own way. The night before her body was found, deputies had already encountered her. Around 3 in the morning on January 22, a concerned resident called for a welfare check. Officers located Karen walking in the cold without a jacket. They spoke with her. She assured them she was okay. They left her there, believing she would find her way to safety. Hours later, she was dead. DNA was recovered from her body. It was sent to the Washington State Crime Laboratory. Forensic evidence exists. It waits for a match. It waits for someone to come forward with the piece that connects everything. Every year, on or near the anniversary, January 18th or January 22nd, Karen's daughters hold a vigil at the site where she was found. They light candles, they share memories, they stand together in the cold, asking anyone who might know something to speak. The most recent vigil was held in 2025. Another is planned for January 22nd, 2026, from 4 to 5:30 in the afternoon. Coffee and snacks provided, a place for people to drive by, honk in support, or share a story. Her daughters have put up billboards in the Olympia area. They maintain a Facebook page dedicated to justice for their mom. They repeat the same message: someone knows something. The Thurston County Sheriff's Office has not forgotten. In 2024, Sheriff Derek Sanders launched a dedicated 2-person cold case and missing persons unit. Detective George Oplinger and Lieutenant Mike Brooks review older files, re-examine evidence, reach out to families quarterly. In 2025 and again in 2026, the Sheriff's Office renewed public calls for information, emphasizing that even the smallest detail could make a difference. The DNA sample remains in the lab. Technology advances. Genealogy techniques that have solved other long cold cases are available. The hope is quiet but steady. This is the unsolved murder of Karen Bodine, a story of a mother's love that outlasted her life, of daughters who refused to let her name fade, of investigators who continue to work, and of the persistent hope that someone, somewhere, still knows something.
Karen Lee Bodine was 37 years old in January of 2007. She was a mother of 3 daughters, Carly Bodine, Taylor Bodine, and another child who shared in her love and care. Karen lived in the Lacey area of Thurston County, Washington, a place where suburban neighborhoods meet rural stretches, where families build lives amid the green landscapes of the Pacific Northwest. She was thin in build, someone who moved with a quiet energy. Her hair was short and spiky, often tinted with a touch of pink, a creative choice that reflected her spirit, her way of adding color to the world around her. Karen was feisty, a word her family uses with affection. She had a spark, a determination that showed in the way she faced each day. Karen's life was shaped by her role as a mother above all else. She prioritized her children in ways large and small. She made sure they knew they were loved, even when life presented its own difficulties. One of the ways she expressed that love was through secret notes she left in their school notebooks. These were small messages, tucked away where her daughters would find them during the day. Words of encouragement, reminders that she was thinking of them. Little affirmations that said, "I see you, I love you, you're going to be okay." These notes were her way of being present, even when she could not be right beside them. They were a quiet tradition, one that her daughters remember with tenderness. Karen's creativity extended beyond her hair or her notes. She had an artistic side, a way of seeing beauty in simple things. She enjoyed crafting, making items that brought joy to her family. Her feistiness came through in her resilience. She was someone who kept going, who found ways to navigate challenges for the sake of her girls. Her daughters describe her laughter as infectious, the kind that filled a room and made hard moments feel lighter. They recall her love as unwavering, the type that showed up in hugs, in shared stories, in the everyday acts of caring that build a family's foundation. Like many people, Karen faced struggles in her life. She experienced periods of on and off substance use, times when alcohol or drugs became part of her story. These were real challenges, ones that affected her health and her relationships. She also endured domestic violence, situations where she found herself in harm's way, where safety felt uncertain. These experiences were difficult, painful, and they left marks, but her family emphasizes that these struggles did not define her. They were part of her journey, yes, but they were not the whole of who she was. Karen was more than those moments. She was a mother who fought to be there for her children. She was someone who sought better days. She was resilient, finding ways to prioritize her family despite the obstacles. Her daughters speak of her with love, focusing on the light she brought into their lives, on the woman who taught them strength through her own example. In the Lacey and Rochester areas, Karen was known to those around her as a person who connected with others. Maps of Thurston County show the places she lived and moved through: the suburban streets of Lacey, the more rural paths near Rochester, where gravel roads wind through wooded areas. These were her surroundings, the backdrop to her daily life. Public and archival photos of Karen, respectful images shared by her family, show her smiling with her daughters, her pink-tinted hair catching the light, her thin frame leaning in close during family moments. These photos capture her as she was, alive, present, full of the quiet fire that made her unique. Recreations of her school notebooks, subtle and non-graphic, help illustrate the small ways she showed love. Imagine a simple page, a note slipped in, "You're strong, I love you, Mom." These were her gifts, hidden treasures that her children discovered at school, reminders that carried them through their days. Despite the challenges she faced, the on and off cycles of substance use that sometimes pulled her away, the domestic violence that threatened her peace, Karen always returned to her role as a mother. She made choices to protect her girls, to give them stability when she could. Her family perspective is clear. She was more than her struggles. She was laughter in hard times. She was resilience when the world felt heavy. She was the light that guided her daughters forward. Carly and Taylor Bodine, now grown, share these memories openly. They talk about how Karen's love shaped them. They describe her as someone who, even in difficult seasons, found ways to laugh, to create, to connect. They emphasize her feistiness as a strength, the way she stood up for herself and for them. They remember her thin build wrapped around them in hugs, her spiky pink hair as a symbol of her playful side. These are the stories they tell at vigils, on social media, to anyone who will listen. Karen was creative in her expressions of care. She was devoted, despite the battles she fought privately. Her life was a tapestry of love and hardship, woven together in ways that made her human, made her real. But on the night of January 21–22, 2007, everything changed. The final hours of Karen Bodine's life unfolded on the evening of January 21, 2007. She was navigating a period of profound personal difficulty. Earlier that day, she had been displaced from her home following a conflict that had reached a breaking point. While the specifics of that struggle remain private, the result was a mother left without a place to stay on a cold winter night. Seeking shelter, Karen reached out to those in her social circle. She eventually found herself in a setting that was far from stable, a place where the environment was heavy with the presence of substances and where her safety was not guaranteed. Karen had faced similar personal battles in the past, making her more vulnerable in such a moment of crisis. Around 3 o'clock in the morning on January 22, a concerned neighbor noticed a woman walking alone in the winter chill and called for assistance. Deputies located Karen in the Lacey area. She was without a jacket, despite the biting cold typical of a Washington winter. When approached, Karen spoke with the deputies calmly. She assured them she was okay and that she had a plan for the rest of the night. Seeing that she was alert and capable of making her own decisions, the deputies had no legal grounds to intervene. They left her, hoping she would find her way to warmth. Those were the last known words she spoke to those in authority. Later that day, the investigation shifted focus. A passerby discovered a person at the entrance to a remote gravel pit north of Rochester. The site was isolated, tucked away among the rural roads of the Pacific Northwest. Deputies arrived and confirmed the tragic discovery. It was Karen. She had been left in a vulnerable state, and it was clear that her life had been taken through an act of physical force. The evidence at the scene suggested she endured trauma before she passed. The manner in which she was found suggested a deliberate act, placed openly at the entrance as if meant to be seen. None of her personal belongings, not her clothing, her purse, or her shoes, were found at the site. The distance between her last sighting in Lacey and the site in Rochester is a 20 to 30-minute drive. How Karen traveled that distance, who she met after the deputies left her, and who was responsible for the act that ended her life are questions that have remained unanswered for 19 years. From the beginning, the sheriff's office worked swiftly. They interviewed everyone who had seen her in those final hours and followed leads on individuals who may have crossed her path. In 2007, forensic technology was advancing and DNA evidence was carefully preserved from the scene. That evidence remains today, waiting for a match that could finally identify the person who was with her in those final moments. The investigation has never been set aside. The timeline of Karen's final hours, from the moment she left her home to the welfare check in the early morning to the discovery in the woods, has been reviewed countless times. The search for answers continues, fueled by the memory of a woman who was more than the circumstances of her end. The Thurston County Sheriff's Office responded with solemn resolve on January 22, 2007. Upon arrival at the entrance of the gravel pit off Middle Rock Road Southwest, deputies immediately established a perimeter to protect the integrity of the site. This was a remote area, and every foot of ground was treated as a potential source of answers. Soon, crime scene specialists arrived to begin their meticulous documentation. In the quiet of that rural landscape, they worked with precision, capturing the scene through detailed photography and spatial measurements. They looked for anything that seemed out of place: soil patterns, trace materials, or any small item that might have been left behind. Their goal was to reconstruct the events of those early morning hours through the silent testimony of physical evidence. The most critical step taken that day involved the recovery of biological evidence from Karen. This evidence was handled with the highest level of care, packaged securely, and transported directly to the Washington State Crime Laboratory in Seattle. In 2007, the science of genetic identification was already a cornerstone of modern investigation, yet it functioned differently than it does today. While the tools were powerful, the digital libraries used for comparison were far smaller. A match required a direct link to a profile already documented within the system or a specific individual identified by investigators. The sample was successfully entered into the state's database and preserved under climate-controlled conditions. It has remained there for nearly 2 decades, a silent, enduring link to the truth, waiting for the moment when technology or a new lead would allow it to speak. As the forensic work continued in the lab, detectives began the difficult task of retracing Karen's final steps. They focused on the hours following her departure from her home, interviewing everyone known to have seen her that evening. Their search led them to a residence where Karen had spent time, a place frequented by individuals who lived on the margins of the community. In this environment, stability was rare, and the people Karen was around that night were often wary of authority. Detectives worked to build rapport, seeking information from associates and acquaintances who might have crossed paths with her after the early morning welfare check. They were looking for a timeline. Who was with her? Where did they go? And how did she end up miles away in a rural gravel pit? Over the years, several individuals were identified whose actions or presence warranted closer scrutiny. Tips from the public, patterns in local activity, and detailed interviews brought specific names to the forefront of the file. For each person of interest, the process was exhaustive. Backgrounds were mapped out, movements were tracked, and alibis were tested against the known facts of the night. Where possible, their genetic profiles were compared against the evidence recovered from the scene. Yet, for a long time, the results remained inconclusive. No individual's profile aligned perfectly with the evidence, and no witness provided the definitive account needed to bring the case to a close. The trail did not end, but it grew quieter as the years passed. To understand why the case remained unresolved, one must look at the world as it existed in 2007. We were in a transitional era. While cell phones were common, the digital footprints we leave today, GPS location history, constant social media check-ins, and high-resolution data were not yet a reality for most people. The records that did exist were often less precise and more difficult to obtain. Furthermore, the geography of the case presented its own set of challenges. Outside of the main urban hubs of Lacey and Olympia, surveillance was almost non-existent. There were no doorbell cameras at every house and no automated license plate readers monitoring the rural intersections. Little Rock Road was, and remains, a stretch of land where the forest meets the road. The gravel pits there are used sporadically for logging and construction, meaning very few people traveled that path during the dark hours before dawn. The nature of the social circles Karen was moving through that night added another layer of complexity. Those who might have seen something were often reluctant to speak. Some feared the consequences of being seen cooperating with law enforcement. Others were simply hard to find as they moved frequently between locations.
The way Karen was found also gave detectives pause. She had been left in an open area, not hidden or concealed from view. This suggested a specific intent, perhaps a belief by the responsible party that they would not be caught in such a remote spot, or perhaps a deliberate choice to ensure she was found. This openness, while tragic, provided fewer environmental clues than a hidden site might have offered. Cold cases are not forgotten. They are held in a state of prepared waiting. Throughout the 2010s, detectives returned to Karen's file. They reviewed the original yellowing pages of interview notes, re-examined the photographs, and periodically resubmitted the genetic profiles to national databases as they grew and evolved. In March 2023, a significant breakthrough in methodology occurred. With the rapid advancement of forensic techniques, investigators authorized the retesting of evidence. The Washington State Crime Laboratory applied modern, highly sensitive extraction methods that were not available in 2007. These techniques can now identify touch evidence or recover usable profiles from samples that were previously considered too small or degraded to analyze. This renewed focus was not just about the lab work, it was about a change in how the department prioritized these long-term mysteries. In June 2024, Sheriff Derek Sanders took a decisive step by establishing a dedicated unit focused exclusively on older files and missing persons. This team, led by experienced investigators like Detective George Oplinger and Lieutenant Mike Borks, was given a clear mandate: apply every modern tool available to the Karen Bodine case. This unit doesn't just look at DNA, they look at digital forensics, genealogy, and the power of social connection. They have the time and resources to follow a lead that might have seemed insignificant 15 years ago, but now carries more weight in the context of new information. Perhaps the most powerful force in the search for justice has been the bond between the investigators and Karen's family. Since 2023, the sheriff has maintained a consistent dialogue with Karen's daughters, Carly and Taylor. These quarterly meetings ensure that the family is never left in the dark. The daughters bring more than just their presence to these meetings. They bring their own research, the memories they've gathered from the community, and an unwavering determination to see their mother's story reach its conclusion. The sheriff's office has responded to this by making the case a public priority. Through renewed appeals in 2025 and 2026, they have reminded the public that no detail is too small. The images from this period show a different kind of investigation. They show vigils held at the site of the gravel pit, where law enforcement officers stand side by side with the family. They show the distribution of modern digital bulletins that keep Karen's face and the date of January 22, 2007 in the minds of the residents of Thurston County. The message is clear. The investigation has evolved from a search for physical evidence into a community-wide effort to find the truth. The genetic sample remains ready. The dedicated unit continues to review the timeline. And while the years have added distance to the events of that cold January morning, they have only added more resolve to those tasked with solving the mystery. Karen Bodine was a mother, a daughter, and a friend. She was a woman who was loved and is still missed. 19 years later, the search for answers is no longer just a cold case file. It is a living, breathing commitment to justice.
Carly and Taylor Bodine were just children when the rhythm of their lives was irrevocably altered in January of 2007. At an age when most children are beginning to navigate the world with their mother as a constant guide, these two young girls were suddenly faced with a profound absence. They grew up in the quiet spaces where their mother's presence used to be: the empty chair at the dinner table, the morning routines that no longer included her voice, and the school days that no longer featured the small, handwritten notes she was famous for tucking into their notebooks. Those notes were a hallmark of Karen's heart. They were simple, secret affirmations hidden between the pages of math homework or history assignments. Words like, "I love you," "You are strong," or "I'm thinking of you." They were her way of being present even when she was physically elsewhere. When Karen was no longer there to write them, the paper began to yellow, but the message remained etched into the souls of her daughters. As Carly and Taylor transitioned from childhood into their teenage years and eventually into adulthood, they made a silent pact with the past. They refused to let the passage of time dim the brightness of who their mother was. They understood early on that while a life can be cut short, a legacy only ends when people stop speaking its name. They became the keepers of her story, the guardians of her reputation, and eventually the voice that would speak for her when she could no longer speak for herself. Every year, as the January air turns crisp and the light begins to fade over Thurston County, Carly and Taylor return to a very specific location. Near the entrance of a quiet road in the rural stretches of the Northwest, they hold a space for their mother.
These anniversaries, most notably observed around the 18th or 22nd of January, are not merely dates on a calendar to them, they are sacred appointments. They hold a vigil, a gathering of light in the heart of winter. As the dusk settles, they light candles that flicker bravely against the cold wind. Bundled in heavy coats and scarves, they stand on the ground where the world last saw their mother, and they speak her name into the open air. They share memories with those who gather, tales of her infectious laughter, her creative spirit, and her famous feistiness. To her daughters, that feistiness wasn't just a personality trait, it was a spark of resilience that they have now inherited. These vigils are open to the community. They are simple, heartfelt affairs where coffee is shared and stories are exchanged. Sometimes a life-sized image of Karen is placed among the candles, her pink-tinted hair catching the soft glow, making it feel as though she is standing right there with them, witnessing the women her daughters have become. Public photographs of these gatherings show two sisters standing shoulder to shoulder, their faces a mixture of sorrow and incredible strength. They aren't just mourning, they are standing watch. In recent years, the circle around Carly and Taylor has grown. What began as a family's private grief has transformed into a community-wide movement for accountability. By 2025, the 18th anniversary of her absence, the vigils saw the presence of official leadership, including Sheriff Derek Sanders and his dedicated team. This shift was monumental. It showed that the official search for answers was no longer happening only in closed offices. It was happening out in the cold, alongside the family. The upcoming gathering, planned for January 22, 2026, continues this tradition. Scheduled for the late afternoon, it serves as an open invitation for the public to dress warmly and bring a memory. It is a reminder to the entire region that while 19 years have passed, the commitment to the truth has not aged a day. The Bodine sisters have effectively ensured that Karen is not a cold case in the eyes of the public. She is a mother, a friend, and a neighbor who is still very much missed. Carly and Taylor have embraced every modern tool to keep their mother's story in the light. Their Facebook page, Justice for My Mom, Karen, serves as a digital hearth where the community can gather. Here they post updates, share old family photos, and offer gratitude to those who continue to support them. Importantly, they use this platform to reclaim their mother's narrative. They reject any narrow descriptions that focus only on her periods of struggle or the difficulties she faced. They insist that the world see the whole woman, the artist, the protector, the mother who prioritized her children above all else. They speak of her resilience during hard seasons, painting a picture of a woman who fought to give her girls stability even when her own life felt uncertain. To support these efforts, they have organized community-funded awareness campaigns. Through transparent fundraising, they have placed large-scale reminders along the busy roads of Olympia. These signs are quiet sentinels that stand amidst the traffic, asking a simple but vital question to every passerby. They believe that the answer to what happened that night doesn't just live in a laboratory, it lives in the memory of someone who might have seen a car, heard a conversation, or noticed a detail that felt insignificant nearly 2 decades ago. The core of their message is remarkably consistent. Karen was loved, she was valued, and somewhere, someone holds a piece of the puzzle. They ask for information not with bitterness, but with a persistent, respectful hope. They believe in the power of the human conscience. They are not alone in this belief. They work with a network of advocates and forensic specialists such as Vivian Boheme, who use modern genealogical research to look for paths forward when traditional leads seem to stall. This collaboration between family, advocates, and the sheriff's cold case unit represents a modern approach to long-term investigations, one where technology is fueled by human devotion. When you look at the photos of Carly and Taylor today, you see women who have turned their grief into a powerful form of action. They have become leaders in their community, advocating not just for their mother, but for the idea that every life is worth the effort of a dedicated search. They have modeled for an entire county what it looks like to love someone across the divide of time. As 2026 begins, the light from those January candles continues to burn. The message of the Bodine sisters remains clear. They will never stop asking, they will never stop remembering, and they will never believe that the truth is waiting to be found. Their mother's story did not end in a rural gravel pit in 2007. It continues every time a candle is lit, every time a note is remembered, and every time a daughter speaks her name.
In the spring of 2025, a message of renewed purpose began to circulate through the communities of Thurston County. It wasn't just a routine announcement, it was a call to the heart of the community. The sheriff's office released a fresh public appeal regarding the long-standing mystery of Karen Bodine. While this was not the first time the public's help had been requested, there was a different weight to the words this time. A sense of quiet urgency that resonated across social media, local news, and neighborhood groups. Accompanying the message was a photograph that many had come to know well. It showed Karen as she truly was, a woman with a gentle, familiar smile and short, spiky blonde hair touched with a signature tint of pink. The text beneath her image was direct, honoring the reality of what happened while focusing on the path forward. It noted that Karen's journey had been tragically cut short on January 22, 2007. She was a 37-year-old mother of 3, a person whose presence was still deeply missed by the daughters she left behind. As 19 years approached, the plea from the authorities remained simple yet profound. Even the smallest detail tucked away in someone's memory for nearly 2 decades could be the key that finally turns the lock. They asked the community to look back to that cold January night in 2007. Did you see a vehicle that seemed out of place? Did you overhear a conversation that felt unsettling? Is there a detail you've carried, perhaps thinking it was too small to matter? The message was a reminder that in the world of cold cases, justice is often found in the fragments of memory held by ordinary people. This public outreach is the visible tip of a much deeper, more methodical effort. Behind the scenes, the Cold Case and Missing Persons Unit, established by Sheriff Derek Sanders in mid-2024, operates with a singular focus. This unit is small, consisting of just 2 dedicated investigators, Detective George Oplinger and Lieutenant Mike Brooks. Their mission is straightforward but demanding: to ensure that files like Karen's never gather dust on a shelf. The work of these 2 investigators is a bridge between the past and the future. They utilize traditional investigative foundations, returning to original reports, reevaluating the statements of those who were present in Karen's circle, and tracing the final known movements of her life. However, they are now equipped with tools that simply did not exist in the winter of 2007. They are looking at the biological evidence through the lens of modern science, using updated laboratory methods that can find clarity in samples that were once considered inconclusive. They are exploring the frontier of genealogical research, a technique that has brought resolution to long silent cases across the nation by connecting genetic data with family histories. While Karen's story predates our modern era of constant digital footprints, these investigators are scouring every record, looking for any thread that might have been missed in the pre-digital landscape of the mid-2000s. One of the most defining characteristics of this renewed effort is the relationship between the department and Karen's family. Since 2023, the sheriff has made it a point to hold quarterly.
19 years have passed since the winter morning of January 22, 2007, a date that stands as a silent marker in the history of Thurston County. It has been 19 years since the journey of Karen Bodine reached an unexpected and tragic conclusion at the entrance to a quiet gravel pit off Little Rock Road Southwest. 19 years since her daughters last felt the warmth of her embrace, since the secret notes she slipped into their school notebooks stopped arriving, and since the woman with the pink-tinted, spiky blonde hair stopped walking through the door with her laughter and her light. In these nearly 2 decades, many questions have remained open, floating in the space between what is known and what is still hidden. We find ourselves looking at the gaps in the story, wondering about the final moments of a 37-year-old mother whose time on this earth was cut far too short. Why was she taken to that particular location, a remote rural spot where the gravel roads wind through the trees? Was it chosen for its isolation, or did that path hold a meaning known only to the one who traveled it with her? We think of the early morning hours around 3 o'clock when Karen spoke with local deputies during a brief welfare check. She was alert, she was herself. But what happened in the hours that followed? Who did she meet, and what path did she take between that brief conversation in Lacey and the moment she was found in Rochester? There are practical mysteries as well. The whereabouts of the clothing she was wearing, her jacket, her shoes, and the personal items she carried. Were they left behind, or were they taken? These are not abstract puzzles for a detective's notebook. They are real, heavy absences that Carly and Taylor Bodine carry every day of their lives. They are the missing pieces that wait to be found. Yet, even as we sit with these difficult questions, we must remember the woman at the heart of the mystery. Karen was far more than the circumstances of her final day. She was a mother whose devotion to her 3 daughters was the North Star of her life. She was a resilient spirit who navigated seasons of immense personal hardship. While her life included chapters of struggle with substances and experiences with conflict in her personal relationships, she never stopped reaching for a better day for her girls. Karen was the light in their lives. Her creativity wasn't just in the vibrant colors she chose for her hair, it was in the way she saw the world. Her care was found in the ink of those secret notes, and her strength was found in her infectious laughter that could brighten the heaviest moments. Her daughters speak of her today with a profound sense of pride. They don't look back with shame, they look back with love. They see a woman who loved fiercely and left behind a legacy of care that has proven to be much stronger than the tragedy that took her. Karen Bodine was a woman who mattered deeply and irrevocably to the people who called her Mom. Stories like Karen's remind us that long-term investigations are not merely relics of the past. They are living journeys carried by families who wake up every day still waiting for a sense of resolution. But they are also stories of incredible possibility. History has shown us, especially in recent years, that these mysteries can be solved. They are solved through the persistence of those who refuse to let the file close, through the breathtaking advances in genetic technology, and through the power of community members who decide after years of silence that it is finally time to speak.
The Thurston County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Unit continues its work because they believe in this possibility. Investigators like Detective George Oplinger and Lieutenant Mike Brooks are not just reviewing old paperwork, they are applying fresh eyes and modern hearts to the evidence. They preserve the biological samples with the knowledge that science grows more capable every year. They meet with Carly and Taylor every quarter, ensuring that the family knows their mother's name is still spoken within the halls of justice. Sheriff Derek Sanders has set a clear tone for the department. No case is too old to be a priority, and no family should have to wait forever for the truth. And then there are the vigils. These annual gatherings at the gravel pit site on January 22 have become a tradition of the heart. Carly and Taylor organize them year after year, transforming a place of tragedy into a place of remembrance. They light candles that flicker against the winter dusk, They share coffee and snacks with neighbors and strangers alike. They invite the community to drive by and honk in support, a simple sound that says, "We remember with you." They stand in the cold, often with the sheriff or his deputies beside them, and they keep Karen's name alive. These vigils are not loud or angry protests. They are quiet, dignified acts of love. They are proof that a mother's memory can outlast any winter, and that a daughter's devotion is an unstoppable force. The planned gathering for January 22, 2026 will be another one of these moments. They invite us all to dress warmly, bring a memory, and stand in the circle of light. The search for answers is supported by a wide network. The Justice for My Mom, Karen Bodine Facebook page remains a hub for those who care. Billboards stand as silent sentinels along the roads of Olympia, and advocates like Vivian Boheme continue to offer their expertise in forensic research. Every one of these threads, the social media posts, the community contributions, the anonymous hotlines, keeps the case from fading into the background. If you have any information, even a detail that feels small, or a memory that you've dismissed as unimportant, we ask you to reconsider. Your piece of information might be the one that completes the picture. You can reach out to the Thurston County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Unit at tcsoc.co.thurston.wa.us or provide an anonymous tip through Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS. Your voice might be the one that finally brings the answers this family has sought for 19 years. If this story has touched you, if you've been moved by Karen's life or by the incredible resilience of Carly and Taylor, we invite you to share your thoughts respectfully. Your engagement helps spread awareness, and awareness is often the first step towards a breakthrough. Consider subscribing to follow these stories of memory and justice, and share this narrative with others who believe that every story deserves an ending. Our sources for this look into Karen's life include official bulletins from the Thurston County Sheriff's Office, local news reporting from King 5 and the Olympian, and the dedicated advocacy of the Bodine family. We will continue to bring you these stories, not to dwell on the darkness, but to honor the light, to remember the person at the center, and to keep asking the questions until the answers finally come home. Some cases